When I was young, I always wanted to be a police officer, and to tell you the truth, when I went to college, I wasn't sure what I wanted to be at that point. I had mixed feelings, not about becoming a police officer, just what I wanted to do in life. And my friend, I graduated from college. I was working for a company, and my friend became a police officer 6 months before I graduated. And I figured I'd give it a shot. I called my investigator, and shortly after that, about 6 months later, I was in. And it's probably one of the best decisions I made. I love being a police officer. I've been on almost 24 years now, and I'll do another 10. You know, I have no. The decision to retire is not here yet, and they always say it's a front row seat to the best show on earth, and it absolutely is. I started my career in the South Bronx. It was culture shock when I first got there, and it opened my eyes to a lot of things. But I enjoy helping people, and I actually enjoy enforcing the law. So it's been my career. The NYPD has been very good to me. I'm a lieutenant. I've been a lieutenant about 14 years. At the time of 9/11, I was a lieutenant for 9 years. I was newly promoted. I had 9 years in the police department. So yeah, lieutenant. And right now I'm actually the second vice president of the Lieutenants Union. I recently became that about a year ago. On September 11th, 2 weeks prior, I was promoted to lieutenant. I was assigned to Midtown North Precinct. That's on 54th Street, Manhattan. And on the day of 9/11, it was election day. It was actually a beautiful day out. The skies were very clear. And I was out on patrol with another recently promoted lieutenant. We got promoted together. We had somebody drive us out. We were just going to check on some of the election posts and do patrol. And when the first building was struck, a friend of mine that was doing election detail down in southern Manhattan by the World Trade Center, he came over the radio, and I heard someone say that a plane had struck the World Trade Center. And it's on fire, and there was an explosion. Initially, we thought that the plane was probably like a small four-seater Cessna or something like that. We didn't really have much information to go on. Since I was in Midtown, I wasn't that close. We decided to go up by the Intrepid, where the cruise ships go sail out, and we went up there to see if we could take a look to see how bad it was, rather than going all the way downtown. Because when you're on patrol, they want you to stay in your area. We went up there. We could actually see the smoke coming from the building, and I said, "Why don't we go back in just in case they need us to go down there?" We went back in to the command. As soon as we walked through the door, they said that another plane struck the other tower. We knew right away it was terrorism. This was no accident. And then we went right to the TV, and you could see that it was, a gaping hole. It was not a small plane that struck the buildings. They had us put on our heavy equipment, helmets. Myself, the other lieutenant, a sergeant, and 10 cops proceeded to go down. They have a mobilization point down by the World Trade Center site. It was actually West Street and Beattie, right at the corner of the complex. While we were going down there, as a matter of fact, when I was walking out the door to the precinct, a friend of mine who's been a lieutenant a couple of years longer than me, he grabbed me and he said, "Listen, whatever you do, don't let any of these guys out of your sight." It was probably the best piece of advice I think I've ever gotten. So they got in a van, we got in a car, we're going down the West Side Highway, and around Chambers Street, most of it was blocked off by fire apparatus, police vehicles. We couldn't get through. So I went over the radio and we asked, "Is there another mobilization point that we could get to get closer?" They said the other one was at the southern tip of City Hall Park, which was Broadway and I think like Barclay. So we proceeded down there. Once we got out of the car, I instructed everyone not to leave my site. We all go together. We started to walk towards the complex, and there was a police chief on the corner trying to get rid of people who wanted to see what was going on. So I grabbed the guys and said, "Listen, why don't we'll put 2 guys on each corner. We'll help him get rid of the people here." So they got out of the area safely, and then we'll proceed to go down to the complex. We posted the guys on all the different corners, and there were tons of people. And actually, I remember as we were walking towards the building, I can still see this guy's face. A civilian walked by, and he says, "Listen, I want to wish you luck because I know I could leave and you can't." And I watched that guy as he walked by. We kind of locked eyes, and I said, wow, this could be real bad. And at the time we first got there, nobody really thought that the buildings were going to come down. You know, the fire department set up their command post inside the building, which is not something we do now. And we were pretty much around the surrounding area of the building too, trying to get people out of the building and get them out safely. We were there trying to get people out of the area of Southern Manhattan, or Lower Manhattan, for about 45 minutes. Myself and the other lieutenant walked towards the building complex, right at the foot of the complex, by Church Street. And we were just seeing what was going on. We still had our guys up the block. So I told him, I said, why don't we go back and get the guys, and let's get down there and see if what kind of help they need to get people out of the building. Just before I walked away, I don't know if I don't know why I said it, but I did, and I don't know even if I believed it fully at the time, but I looked at up the buildings and I turned to him and I said, you know what, these buildings could come down. And I don't know why I said it, but at that time he said, I'll go get the guys, and I said, all right, I'll wait here. He started to walk up the block, and rather than waiting, I started to walk towards the complex. And I walked across the street, and once I got to the foot of the complex, the first building started to fall. And at first I didn't know what it was. It was a thunderous sound. The ground was shaking. I looked up, and you see a sea of people running, and I could see the top of the building start to implode. And my first thoughts were, and when I turned to run with everyone else, it's going to topple over. I'm not going to make it. So I started to run up the block, and you could hear the crashing of debris hitting the buildings as we were running towards Broadway. As we were running, we were grabbing people to try and bring with us. And I got about a block, and as I was running, I'm turning, and I could see the dust cloud and debris. It looked like a 100-story ghost coming at you, just filling up the air. And I thought, if that gets to me, I'm not going to be able to breathe. I'm going to die. So ran about another quarter of a block, and as I was running, I was turning, seeing how close it was, and then all of a sudden, darkness. So I actually went close to the ground, put my hands over my mouth to try and breathe, and I said, I can't believe I'm going to die. This is it. And I realized at that time you can still breathe. So I looked up. I seen like a shadow. I didn't know what it was. It just looked like something that was an opening. And as a matter of fact, just to back up, just prior to running in there, you could hear gunshots. I heard some gunshots. It was police officers shooting out some windows of locations that were locked because it was early in the morning, to try and get inside, because I guess they thought that they wouldn't be able to breathe either. And I also heard fighter jets above me. And the first thing I thought was is that we were this was some type of an attack from a military, of what I didn't know. It was very confusing. So the fighter jets were up, obviously, to try and protect us, but I didn't know if they were ours, or then you hear gunshots. I really didn't know what was going on. I ran towards the dark shadow, and it was a parking garage. I could have ran into a pole. I couldn't see anything, but I ran towards it. There was a guy there with at the garage door, and I said, "Is anybody else out there?" And it started to fill up with the smoke and the debris. And he said, "I can't see anything." And there were about 40 to 50 people in there. He closed the door. I said, "Is there a safe?" Because since it started to fill up with the smoke, I said, "Is there a safer area that we could go?" We initially went downstairs. It was worse. And then when we started to go back up, we stopped, and there were food carts in there. Some of the food vendors, they store their carts in garages. I told the people, I said, "I don't know how long we're going to be here. Get water, anything that's on the cart, take it, and we'll bring it upstairs, and we'll see, if it's just in case we need food or drink." They did that. We got in the elevator, went to the next floor, and we're there. People were panicking. There were 2 cops that were there with me also that I didn't know. They weren't from my group. My whole group got separated during the whole thing. We weren't sure who survived, who didn't. I spoke to all the people. I said, "Just calm down. We'll see how long we could breathe in here. We'll see how long we can stay safely." and then I'll instruct you on what I think we need to do. After about 15 minutes, I grabbed the parking attendant and I asked him to bring me to the roof. I told the other cops to stay with everyone that was down there. I went up to the roof, we looked out, and to be honest with you, to me it looked like a bad movie set. You know, I was probably about 2 blocks from the complex, approximately a block and a half, and it looked like ash. It almost looked like it snowed. It was abandoned police cars, fire trucks, fire equipment, police equipment all over the streets. I came back down and I said, I'm going to go out and see what needs to be done. Told the cops to stay with people. So I went outside and started to make my way back down towards the Trade Center. As I was walking down, somebody grabbed me and they told me that a woman was giving birth. So I went about a block south from where I was. I forget which street it was on, and I seen an EMS truck come by, flagged them down. I said, the woman's giving birth, and they said, I can't help you. You have to take care of this one yourself. We got to get down to the Trade Center. So they left. As I was about to walk in, a fireman was walking by. I grabbed him, and we went inside, and there was a woman giving birth. We're helping her. There's a hospital about a block and a half away. One of the workers ran up the block to get a wheelchair, and they got a doctor and ran back, and we ended up getting her in a wheelchair. And as she was going out the door, I looked up. All the cell sites were down. There was nobody you could call. There was a phone on a desk, and I picked it up, and it was a dial tone. So I called home. I spoke to my wife. I said, I'm okay. She was hysterical crying. I said, I'm okay. I need to go back to work. I'll get back to you in a little while. I ended up hanging up the phone, made my way back towards the World Trade Center, and as soon as I got to the foot of the complex, the second building started to fall. This time as I was running, I was pulling onto door handles to see if I could get inside a location to get in there safely, and everyone was running all different. There weren't as many people out there at this point because I don't think a lot of people came out. As I was walking down, we were walking down with some firemen and cops to get back down towards the site. But once the second building came down, when I was pulling on doors, I actually got into, it was a bar, believe it or not, and people were in there and visibly upset, and they didn't really know what to do. We had to put towels in front of the doors at the bottom so no smoke came in. And shortly after that, we ended up going back down to the site to help. Later in the day, I lost most of the guys I was with. We met up probably hours later down by the site. They instructed us to go to a certain point where they could regroup everyone and come up with a plan so we could start the rescue mission. When we got to that site, they actually had us take off most of our uniforms and hose us down to get everything off us, the debris, and they gave us some paper masks that maybe would help us breathe. And they actually didn't have us go back down there. We stayed around for about 4 or 5 hours. They had a fresh crew come in to go down for the rescue that night. And then about 4 o'clock in the morning, I went back with my guys, and we proceeded to try to find survivors. And we didn't find anyone. There were some, me personally, I didn't find anyone. I know that night they did take some people out. But the grounds down at the World Trade Center were, I mean, you didn't find a desk. Yeah, you didn't find the chairs. Everything pretty much vaporized when the buildings came down. My old partner was an aviation pilot. He was the first one up at the time. And I actually ran into him that morning. And I went up in a helicopter with him. And I seen the site from above. And it was horrible. I think it was really one of the worst days of my life. I think that if we continued to use that mobilization point from the beginning, I don't know if myself or any of the people I actually went down there with from my command, whether or not we would have survived. There were too many people that died that day, from police officers to firemen. civilians in the building, the people on the airplanes. I think it was one of the worst days in American history, but I think it changed it changed our country. I think it changed us as a department and the way we police. And we continue to police differently now than we did prior to 9/11. It was tough. I mean, years later, people continue to get sick. I got a call from one of the guys that actually drove me down to the site that day. We responded together, and he's got a rare blood cancer. You never know. We go through annual screenings with Mount Sinai, and you never know if it's going to be you, or really anyone that was down there. We were down there. They said the air was safe, and obviously it wasn't. And it's important. Today, actually, December 8th, we were told that the Victims Compensation Fund, the Mount Sinai clinics, that the compensation for that, the politicians agreed that I think they're going to continue it indefinitely, which is something that we need. The illnesses, we've had actually, I think, 3 lieutenants in the last year that died from 9/11 related illnesses, and there are many more that are sick, and this is something that needed to be done. 2 weeks prior, when I first got promoted, 2 weeks prior to 9/11, my wife was pregnant with twins, and but at the time we didn't know we were having twins. So just the 2 weeks before we found that out, there were plenty of first responders, like I said, people that were in the airplanes, in the building, other rescue workers that did not come home that day, and some of them never got to see their children. They left children and family behind, and I've always valued what I have. I've always valued life, and it opened up my eyes even more. I appreciate what I have. I appreciate people, and I look at things a lot differently, and I think we all do. Every year, as a matter of fact, on 9/11, 2 a year later, they had the first. They had I guess they had a ceremony down there for people who perished, and it was very emotional for everyone. So I was there for everyone, and everyone the year after. I've gone down to the site, to the pools. It's very tastefully done. The memorial is very heartfelt, emotional. It's very powerful. So I have gone down there every year after, and I'll continue. We use a lot of resources. Every threat is taken seriously. There are a lot of anonymous threats that don't come to fruition, but we still police it with a lot of resources. We've increased our counterterrorism bureau. We have other teams that go to certain areas that we consider maybe targets. I think anywhere really is a target. We have we just continue to monitor, and I think our city is one of the safest cities. I think it's one of the biggest targets. I do think New York City is one of the safest cities. We have about 34,000 police officers, so we have, like I said, plenty of resources to make sure people are safe. And I think people should continue about their business and continue to visit the city, because that's what we do as Americans, and I wouldn't allow anyone to take that away from us. I think everyone was affected. I know recently we had a police officer pass away from 9/11 related illness. I think everyone anyone who believes in, or is an American or believes in their country, I think everyone, it was solidarity. I think people stuck together. We knew that there was a mission that needed to be done by a military. I have a lot of respect for our military and what they do. And I just think that an event like this brings people closer, no matter where you are. I got a phone call from an inspector that I worked with for many years, and he told me that there was a photo on, it was on 9/11, the 10th anniversary of 9/11, and he said it was, AOL had the, I think it was September 11th, I forgot what they call it, memories or photos, I'm not sure, but anyway, he told me that there was a photo of me running from the building that day. So 10 years later, I had no idea that this photo was taken. I had no idea it was out there. And 10 years later, I was amazed. It hit home, you know, because that day was, you know, it wasn't only the day. 9/11, I think, it's a constant memory, and I think and everyone should remember and never forget what happened. So when I seen that photo, it brought me back to that day, and I do think about it. I think it's something, I guess, because I was part of it in our nation's history, that it'll always be close to my heart. Yeah, so the photo amazed me. One of my first partners in the police department is an aviation pilot. He was the first pilot, first helicopter up during 9/11, during the attacks. They responded when the first airplane struck the World Trade Center. They responded over to the site, and they were looking for ways to try and relay information on how to rescue people, because the building was engulfed in flames. While they were hovering, trying to figure a way to rescue, his partner yelled to him that he should climb, meaning to go up to bring the helicopter higher. And when he turned and said, why, he said, just climb. And he turned to his right, and he seen the second airplane approaching. And he immediately brought the helicopter up higher, and he said the guy who was flying the plane actually dipped down, I think, to avoid the helicopter. Now, what he was thinking, I have no idea whether or not, I mean, he would have tore right through the helicopter. But so the helicopter, NYPD helicopter rose, and the plane came right down and struck the second tower. He said he could actually see people holding hands and jumping out the window. And it affected him. I remember he called me a few days later. Well, I seen him the next day, and then days later. I think the more time you spent down there, you became more affected by it. We spent about 16 hours a day down at the site, and I think not having rescued a lot of people, I think we thought that we were going to rescue more than we did. That hurt. So it bothered him immensely, like all of us.
How long did you spend down there?
Over a year. What we did in our command, and every command is different. Manhattan South is comprised of 10 commands, and it's everything south of 59th Street. The command I was in was probably one of the northernmost commands, from 45th to 59th Street, and up in like the Times Square area. So we would go down there with groups every day. We'd start about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I think we got, depending on, by the time you had a roll call and went down there, you'd probably get out about 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night. Because the other groups that came down there to relieve you need to go through a roll call and get all their assignments. The first few days following the attack, we were down there about, I'd say, 14, 16 hours a day. And then they tried to separate it and have you go down every other day. So you weren't down there all the time. So we had other functions, obviously, patrol to do and everything. One thing how a big effect on patrol that we had was we had a lot of threats for dangerous substances and stuff like that, and so patrol became very busy. Certain things that we normally paid attention to, maybe small things, maybe the unlicensed vendors out there, things that become chaotic and lead to other crime. When you have a lot of vendors on the streets and you have a lot of people who are shopping, and then you have some pickpockets going on, and then you have maybe some robberies, and people get disgusted with each other, some assaults, so it leads to large crowds and other problems. So with the World Trade Center, I guess taking up a lot of our resources, we needed to focus back on other things too. So we had certain guys on patrol, and every other day go down to the World Trade Center, and after a while it became, after a certain amount of time, became a recovery effort. And I will tell you, the steel workers, the iron workers, the carpenters down there, we had so much support. They gave so much. I mean, I have utmost respect for those iron workers up there cutting those beams. It was very dangerous, and to get, to clean up the site, we did it very, very fast. I mean, I responded to Hurricane Katrina with the police department. I was in it for 2 weeks, and the way we responded in New York City to clean up that site and to try and get things back to normal, it was amazing. What we were able to do, and how many people came down to help. Yeah, they gave us masks that would, I guess, help, I guess, safety-wise, breathing-wise, maybe a little heavier. But it was. I guess it still wasn't. I guess it still wasn't enough. I think the initial attack. I think everything that was in the air that day. I think that's what really affected it. I think that everyone's different. I think there's people that could smoke for 20 years and never get cancer, and I think there's somebody that could smoke for 1 year and get cancer. I think people's bodies fight things off differently. So I mean, it is definitely proven. I know the first time that we went down to lobby for the James Droga bill for the Victims' Compensation Fund and the healthcare part of it, we assumed we had no real data. Proven data that people would come down with certain illnesses, like we do now, but doctors assume that would happen, and I just hope that more people don't continue to get sick. The pools are beautiful. And when I say tastefully done, they were brothers that passed. One was a fireman, one was an emergency service officer. And the way they did it was they had the fire department names all on. I think it's the southern pool on the southern end of it. They have the fire department names, and it goes right into the police names, so the brothers could be next to each other. And I don't know if you're aware of this. Every time if you ever go down to the pools, and they have the names, and the names are actually carved out. But you'll see a flower in some of the names. That's when it's their birthday. People down at the site put a flower in there, and it's definitely a site that continues to be visited, and I think everyone should go see it. It's done very nice, but when you look up at the tower, it's amazing. It's an amazing building. Yeah. 2 months, about 2 months or so after the attacks, I remember coming home and having dinner. My daughter at the time was 4, I think, and my older one, I think was, what was Renee, maybe 12 or 13 years old, and we were sitting at the table, and I guess from being on there so much, and I guess I didn't realize the effect that it really had on me. I just broke down during dinner. And I remember telling my wife, I said, how could this happen? How do we let this happen? Why? Why would people do this? And it was, you see people coming back from overseas, whether it be Iraq or, at the time of Vietnam, and they came back so shocked with the post-traumatic stress, syndrome. And I don't know if I ever really understood it. And I know you can't compare the two, being overseas for long periods of time and fighting a war. I'm not trying to compare that, but I understood the effects of something so traumatic has on somebody. It was very difficult at that time. And I do remember driving back. We used to go back to our command from the World Trade Center every night, there would be rows of people on the West Side Highway with signs thanking us and cheering us all the way back to the command. It was something to see. It was nice when everybody kind of united. It was great.
Some people in Clark Place Middle School, High School weren't even born when 9/11 occurred. If there was one thing you think they should know, what would it be?
To never forget, to appreciate what our military does for us, our police, our fire, to keep people safe, and just to doing this.
Thank
Means a lot.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.